This is the woman I was hiding for years. I whispered those words like a confession I never thought I'd make. For so long, I kept her existence locked away in the hidden corridors of my memory, buried beneath layers of guilt, fear, and uncertainty. She wasn't just a person, I had hidden a chapter of my soul, a story that could have changed everything had it been told earlier. Her presence now, standing in front of everyone, felt like a moment both overdue and explosive. I could feel the air shift, silence flooding the room, as eyes turned toward her, some filled with curiosity, others with shock. My hands trembled slightly, not out of weakness, but because of the weight of truth finally finding light. She was the part of me I had tried to forget, yet could never truly let go. We had a history that no one knew, one that blossomed quietly in the shadows, away from judgment, away from noise. I had protected that memory fiercely, not because it was something to be ashamed of, but because I was afraid the world would never understand it. And perhaps, even more terrifying, I wasn't sure I truly understood it myself. She had walked into my life when I was falling apart, and held the broken pieces of me like they were sacred. And instead of showing her to the world, I kept her hidden like a sacred secret, afraid the world would shatter what little piece I had left, now, years later. That secret stood in full view. No more lies. No more half-truths. Just her, just me, and the truth that lived between us. I watched her face, calm, composed, but with eyes that carried entire lifetimes of silent longing. There was no blame in them. Just recognition. And maybe, just maybe, a flicker of hope. Hope that this time, I wouldn't hide her. That this time, I would be brave enough to face the world with her beside me. And in that moment, I knew, what we had was too real, too powerful, too necessary to keep in the dark anymore. The weight of that sentence echoed louder than any scream I'd ever heard. It wasn't just a statement, it was a key, unlocking years of silence, denial, and buried truths. The crowd stood frozen, caught between disbelief and anticipation, like witnesses to a secret unfolding in slow motion. I could feel my heartbeat in my throat as I watched her face, still unreadable, yet familiar, achingly familiar. She hadn't changed much. A few new lines on her skin, a quieter sadness in her gaze, but the essence of her, the fire that once warmed me on my coldest days, was still alive. I remember the first time I saw her, not like a lightning bolt, but like dawn rising slowly, gently, over a dark horizon. She wasn't loud, she wasn't demanding, she simply existed in a way that made the chaos of the world pause for a breath. With her, I learned the difference between existing and living. But back then, love wasn't enough to save us. I was a different man, driven by ambition, burdened by responsibilities, and afraid of vulnerability. Loving her felt like rebellion. It felt like risking everything I had built, everything I was expected to be. And so, I made the coward's choice. I buried her under excuses. I chose silence over explanation. Distance over closeness. I told myself it was protection, but I knew I was only protecting myself. There were nights I'd wake up breathless, reaching for a presence that no longer shared my bed, haunted by the echo of her laughter in the empty rooms of my life. I saw her in crowded streets, heard her name in songs, and felt her absence like a bruise that never faded. Still, I didn't go back. Not because I didn't want to, but because I thought I no longer deserved to. How do you face someone you abandoned with your silence? How do you walk back into a life you once walked away from? But fate has a strange way of weaving paths together again, no matter how far they drift. And now, standing here, with her only a few feet away, I felt the entire timeline of our story stretch across the space between us. I wanted to say her name, but it stuck to the roof of my mouth, too sacred to speak aloud. I wanted to tell the world everything, that she was my solace, my storm, my once upon a time, and perhaps, still, my always. That in hiding her, I had been hiding the truest part of myself. She looked at me, not with anger, not with bitterness, but with the kind of knowing that only comes from having loved deeply, and lost even deeper. And yet, there was no hatred in her stare. Just years of unanswered questions, of wonder, of silent hoping. I took a step forward, unsure of what I would say next. The truth was, I didn't have the right words. There was no script for redemption. No perfect sentence that could make up for time lost or love denied. All I had was the raw honesty I should have shown her years ago. I was afraid, I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Not of you, but of what you meant to me. You made everything real. And I wasn't ready to be real. A tear slipped down her cheek, and still she said nothing. But she didn't walk away. And that, more than anything, told me there was still something here, something worth holding on to. Maybe not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday, and in that moment, I vowed silently, I would never hide her again. Not from the world. Not from myself. I watched her eyes as they searched mine, as if she were looking for some sign that this time would be different. That I had changed. That I was finally ready to stop hiding not only her, but the man I had once promised to become. And the truth is, I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if the wounds I left in her had healed or merely scarred over with silence. But I knew one thing, this moment was different. The world could spin, the noise could return, the eyes could stare and judge, but I was no longer hiding. Her presence now was not an accident, it was a reckoning. A confrontation with the past I had so carefully kept locked away, afraid that if I looked too closely, I'd unravel completely. And yet, here she was, standing in the same space as the people I had built my present with. She wasn't a secret anymore. She was real, undeniable, unerasable. I had built walls so high around my heart that not even I could see what was left inside. But seeing her again cracked them open, letting light pour in through places I thought would remain in shadow forever. I waited for you, she finally said, her voice soft but steady. Not for a year. Not even 2. But for enough time to know that waiting was a choice, not a punishment. I didn't wait because I hoped you'd come back, I waited because I needed to know that I could let go of you the right way. And when I finally did, you found me again. Her words were gentle, but they struck like thunder. I had hoped, in some selfish corner of my heart, that she'd forgotten me. That moving on meant she had erased me completely, because then I wouldn't have to feel the weight of what I lost. But she remembered. And yet, she wasn't angry, she was just tired. Tired of being hidden. Tired of being the what if instead of the what is. I don't want to be a secret anymore, she continued, not with bitterness, but with clarity. I was never ashamed of loving you. But I refuse to be someone you remember only when it's convenient to feel regret. I nodded, slowly, the words catching in my throat. You don't have to be, I said, my voice cracking under the pressure of everything I hadn't said before. You never should have been. I didn't hide you because you weren't enough, I hid you because I wasn't. I wasn't ready to be seen with someone who saw me so clearly. And now I know, that was my greatest mistake. The room around us seemed to disappear. The whispers faded into silence, the judgment melted away. All that remained was the truth, raw, unpolished, and undeniable. I wanted to take her hand, but I didn't. Not yet. Not until I knew it was wanted. Instead, I stood there, allowing myself to be vulnerable, possibly for the first time in years.